Welcome back to Chess Tactic. Today, we've got a legendary clash for you. The magician from Riga, Mikhail Tal, against a prodigious young talent, the future world champion Garry Kasparov. This is a blitz battle between two of the greatest attacking players in history, so get ready for fireworks. And Tal kicks things off pawn to king 4. The classic, aggressive opening. No surprise there from the magician. Kasparov responds with pawn to queen's bishop 4. The Sicilian defense! He's telling Tal, I'm not here for a quiet game, let's fight. White develops with knight to king's bishop 3, preparing to challenge the center. Black plays pawn to queen 3, a solid move, preparing to control the center and develop his pieces. And there it is, pawn to queen 4. Tal immediately breaks open the center, turning this into an open Sicilian. Kasparov accepts the challenge. Pawn takes pawn on queen 4. Knight takes pawn on queen 4. White gets a powerful knight in the center, and the main lines of the Sicilian begin to take shape. Knight to king's bishop 3 from Kasparov, developing a piece and putting a little pressure on the e4 pawn. Tal defends the pawn with knight to queen's bishop 3, and continues his own rapid development. And Kasparov plays pawn to queen's rook 3. We have a Najdorf Sicilian on the board, folks. This is one of the sharpest, most complex openings in all of chess. Tal goes for the classic attacking line, bishop to king's knight 5. He's pinning the knight and preparing to cause problems on the king side. Kasparov plays pawn to king 3, breaking the pin and setting up a solid pawn structure in the center. Pawn to king's bishop 4. Tal is not holding back. He's expanding on the king side, signaling his aggressive intentions. And Kasparov responds in kind on the queen side. Pawn to queen's knight 4. This is a race, whose attack is going to land first. Tal pushes forward, pawn to king 5. He's trying to blow the center wide open and disrupt black's coordination. Kasparov captures pawn takes pawn on king 5. He has to take, otherwise his position gets far too cramped. Pawn takes pawn on king 5. The position is absolutely razor sharp. That e5 pawn is a major thorn in black's side. Kasparov plays queen to queen's bishop 2, attacking the e5 pawn and preparing to unpin his knight. Tal defends calmly with queen to king 2. He's reinforcing the center before continuing his assault. Knight to queen 2. Kasparov untangles his pieces, moving the knight to a safer square and preparing to challenge white's control. And Tal castles queenside. He connects his rooks and gets his king to relative safety. Now the battle lines are drawn. Opposite side castling means it's an all-out attack. Bishop to queen's knight 2 from Kasparov. A fantastic developing move. That bishop is a monster, slicing across the long diagonal towards white's king. Queen to king's knight 4. Tal shifts his queen to the king side, preparing to create direct threats against the black king, who is still stuck in the middle. Kasparov responds with queen to queen's knight 3, a multi-purpose move, defending key squares and also keeping an eye on white's king. Bishop to king 2. A quiet, useful move from Tal, preparing to bring his final rook into the game. And Kasparov strikes! Knight takes pawn on king 5. He snatches the central pawn, but this is incredibly risky. Is Tal simply allowing this? Queen to king's rook 3. Tal pulls his queen back, keeping pressure on the king side and preparing to line up his heavy pieces. Knight from b8 to queen 2. Kasparov finishes his development, but that king in the center is looking more and more vulnerable. Rook from h1 to king 1. Tal brings his last piece into the game, and it's aimed like a laser right down the e-file at Kasparov's uncastled king. Pawn to king's rook 3. Kasparov pokes the bishop on knight 5, forcing it to make a decision. Bishop to king's bishop 4. Tal doesn't retreat, he repositions. The bishop now puts pressure on the weak e6 square. Kasparov plays bishop to queen's bishop 4. A good move, controlling key squares and trying to trade off some of white's attackers. And here it is. Knight takes pawn on king 6. What a move from Mikhail Tal. This is pure, unadulterated attacking genius. He sacrifices a knight to shatter Kasparov's pawn structure and rip open the lines to the black king. The board is on fire. Kasparov has no choice. Pawn takes knight on king 6. He must accept the sacrifice, but now his king is terribly exposed. Tal doesn't hesitate for a second. Bishop to king's rook 5. Check. He is relentlessly prying open the position. This forces the black king out into the open, preventing any last chance of finding safety. The hunt is on. King to king 2. Kasparov is forced to walk his king out into the center of the board. This is an incredibly dangerous place to be against Mikhail Tal. Bishop takes knight on king 5. Tal eliminates a key defender and continues to clear the way for his rooks. Knight takes bishop on king 5. Kasparov recaptures, but white's attack is just getting started. Rook takes knight on king 5. Another piece joins the assault. That rook is an absolute monster, dominating the open e-file. Rook from h8 to king's bishop 1. Kasparov tries to bring his own rook into the defense and maybe create some counterplay. Queen to king's knight 3. A beautiful move from Tal. He puts pressure on the weak g7 pawn and keeps all his pieces working in harmony. Pawn to king's knight 4. A desperate attempt by Kasparov to create a fortress for his king, but pushing pawns like this often creates more weaknesses than it solves. And now, queen to queen 3. This is a masterstroke of repositioning. From here, the queen eyes the entire board, threatening to invade on multiple squares. Kasparov is tangled in a web of threats, and there are no easy answers. King to king's bishop 3. The king continues his desperate walk, trying to find a safe square. But against Tal, there are no safe squares. Rook from d1 to king 1. Tal doubles his rooks on the e-file, and the pressure is simply unbearable. Every white piece is coordinated in a perfect attacking symphony. Rook to king's knight 1. Kasparov defends against the immediate threat on the g-file, but it's only a temporary solution. And there it is. Queen to king's rook 7. The final, crushing blow. From this square, the queen delivers decisive threats. Black is facing checkmate on g7, and the rook on g8 is pinned and cannot move. It's all over, and Kasparov resigns, a stunning attacking masterpiece by Mikhail Tal. He showed exactly why he was known as the magician from Riga, weaving a beautiful tactical web that even a young Garry Kasparov could not escape. What an incredible game! A true clash of attacking styles and a tactical lesson we won't soon forget. Thanks for joining us on Chess Tactic today, and we'll see you next time.